it's recording, I'm going to switch over to change layout so it's a spotlight, meaning whoever's talking will be visible and whoever's not talking won't be visible. I'm just going to quickly just check that all my keys are ready. Eddie's ready. Anthony's there.
Just throw on a shirt. Just throw on a shirt.
No, I just throw on a
jacket. What do you think of the hat I threw on?
Oh God. Okay.
Oh, nice. Okay. All right. Well, if we're doing that, let me just
just go fully. Hey, you may as well wear the 2021, man. I don't think we're gonna get much of a chance to.
Oh, jeez. Yeah. What a. Yeah. Okay. Let's talk about.
We'll get into it.
All right, Russ. Let us know when you want us to go, and we will.
Okay. Live around the nation. This is Behind the Goals with
that's not its fault.
Presenters. They're still talking. With your presenters, John and Anthony, live via NBN Home. Here they are. You're live, guys.
Hello, everybody. Hello, and welcome to Behind the Goals here on DRN1. I'm not sure if you're going to be able to see us, but I can see Anthony. I can see the station manager, Russell. We are bringing you this show from isolation in our own homes. It's wonderful. So Russell is in the station. Anthony, I can see some really beautiful Venetian blinds. Probably cost a lot. And here I am in my home, bringing you DRN1 Behind the Goals. John and Anthony. Now, look, Anthony. Obviously, there isn't a lot of footy to talk about. We haven't seen any of the players kick a footy for a while. We haven't seen any, even of the women who are wrapping up their season. But we have seen a lot in the news, and we have a lot to talk about this morning.
Oh, there is plenty to talk about.
Yeah, there is a lot to talk about. And if you are listening, of course, you're probably wanting your footy fix. And Anthony and I can bring that to you. So, Anthony, the very first thing that I want to talk about is obviously the elephant in the room. It's the season.
What's happened?
Well, I don't know if you've been watching, but there's been some pretty big news that's happened.
No, look, man. I'll be honest with you. It's been a really long 3 months, but I'm just glad footy's going to be back because it's.
Yeah, like we've had our preseason. AFL Women's is wrapping up, and we're about to have bounce down on the very first round, and we're looking forward to it. Look, Anthony, obviously coronavirus has thrown a spanner in the works of all of this, and it hasn't been great. We got one round. They kind of tempted us, or sort of gave us a little bit of a show and said, hey, footy's here, and now it's not.
Doesn't it make you feel like we just wasted 4 weeks on the Marsh series?
Yeah, right.
Like on a competition that no one except like the crappier teams take serious?
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, Fremantle and Carlton and, a few other teams got some really good wins. Who cares, right?
We had one round. Like no one takes that comp serious unless you've just come off a bad season and you've got to sell hope to your supporters. Then you're well, we can go hard here. And I just feel like four weeks, we could have had an extra 4 weeks of footy. Oh man.
Yeah, we probably could have just started round one. 6-7 weeks ago, whatever it was. But instead, they gave us Marsh, then they gave us round one. And look, Anthony, we knew. I know that we probably didn't really want to admit it, but everyone knew that the season was not going ahead, right? We knew that, didn't we?
Oh, we knew it was going to stop at some stage. I think that's what it like. I'm surprised we got a full round out, but some people thought it'd be 2 rounds and then stop. Like they were really pushing for as much as they could kind of thing. And, shortening the games apparently was supposed to be a lead into being, we can try and get as many games in as possible in a shorter period of time. So this was all done with the intention of it's going to stop at some point.
Yeah, we knew that. Yeah.
Even even with the idea of it resuming, there's still the chance that one positive test will shut it all down again.
Yeah, that was the reality, isn't it? Is that we had a round. We probably shouldn't have had the round, especially with you look at Collingwood and Scott Pendlebury. Was he testing positive? Was he not? What's going on there? There was a lot of
They were just pushing forward,
and they were pushing it, weren't they? They were going, they were pushing forward, and
it's
nothing
those
was
TV
going to
rights
stop
that were
round one.
driving it, though.
Yeah, and I think we discussed that on the show a couple of weeks ago. It is the TV rights, but let's talk about. Look, I want to talk about the future of the game. Obviously, this has been devastating for the competition. It's devastating for a lot of teams.
Just on that thought, though, like I reckon we got to break it into two to be like the future of the game if this season goes ahead versus if it doesn't, because those are two very different scenarios which are still in play.
Yeah. Okay. So let's break it in two. I'm gonna put this out there and say I don't think it's gonna go ahead. I just don't. Let's break that in two. Let's talk about if the season doesn't go ahead. What are we looking at here? What are we talking about? Are some clubs going to fold?
Well, look at it in this kind of already what's happened. Carlton's cut ties with its second tier club.
Yeah.
Now that's a club saying we can't afford to have this alliance continue without footy happening. So they've hung them out to dry, essentially. Carlton isn't a poor club by any stretch of the imagination. They're not super rich. They've struggled the last decade, obviously, but they came off a pretty decent base still. So if that club's doing that, I think I read something the other day saying there's only 4 clubs who could survive potentially if the season doesn't go ahead without help from the AFL.
Yeah, so who were those clubs? They were West Coast Eagles,
West Coast,
Collingwood,
Hawthorn,
Richmond,
and Collingwood.
Hawthorn. That's it, right.
So they're your 4. Now, out of those clubs, only I think 3 out of 4 of those clubs have an AFLW team.
Mm-hmm.
I think that's the first competition we're going to look into. It's going to be in trouble because those
it's probably
teams are fully funded by the clubs.
Yeah,
the AFL doesn't kick in much at all for that. They're not, because the AFL isn't getting as much back in terms of TV revenue, broadcasting rights, everything like that.
Back.
They're not getting much at all. So,
yeah. I mean, the games are free, right? People can go and watch these games for free. They're not getting ticket sales. They're not getting.
So the AFL is paying to have the officials there, to have the grounds available, everything like that. But the clubs pay for the player wages, the transport, the facilities, everything needed to run that club. The clubs pay for. And it's a shame because given a few more years, this comp could grow into something great. So you don't want to see it stop. And even just in terms of the local footy, what it's inspired. I played at a club just around the corner who had their first women's team last year.
Give them a shout out. What's the club?
Piara Waters.
Piara Waters. That's right. Yeah, and they wear the Giants.
Yeah, with the old Falcons kind of thing going. But they had their first women's team last year who they had amazing numbers for, like just incredible numbers. They won the league in their first year, and now they've got enough people there to have 2 teams. They had 2 teams this year. Like that growth that's incredible.
Well, yeah, it's phenomenal, isn't it? And you love to see it. It's fantastic.
And it's happening across, and it's all inspired by the AFLW giving more pathways to women football, showing them that this is a legit competition, everything like that. So you don't want to see it go down.
No, you don't.
But I can't see a reality where if this season doesn't go ahead, that we still walk out of it with 18 clubs, because they're saying guaranteed 18 clubs and the AFLW.
So we've got a comment on our. So we are going live here, and obviously, if you're listening to the podcast, you won't see us live. You won't see Anthony and my beautiful face. And if Russell talks, then the Google Meet is going to bring him as well, and you'll see the station manager, Russell. But
sorry, sorry, John, just to interrupt you there. It won't show me because I'm in the studio doing all the controls.
Okay, all right. It's not going to show Russell. Unfortunately for you, if you are listening or if you are watching live, you're not going to see Russell. That's very devastating for you. We can see him. I don't want to brag, but yes, we can. But we do have a comment here on Behind the Goals. So we're going live on Facebook. We've got a number of listeners and viewers right now.
And how lucky you guys! You get to see all our excessive hand movements for once.
Yeah, right. We're doing these things. But we've got a comment from Brent. And Brent, thank you for tuning in. And I believe Brent's in Melbourne or Victoria or thereabouts. He's an old Navy buddy of mine. My daughter will be devastated if the AFLW folds. Started playing Auskick last year, and this year was going to play her first year of proper juniors. So it's not just, Anthony, it's not just the AFLW. If it folds, it's not just that, right?
Absolutely heartbreaking. Like that's, yeah. And that's like, look, I'm not. All right, obviously there's gender stereotypes, blah blah blah, that I'm going to probably dip into here. That's not going to sound great, but I've got two boys.
We're going to do it anyway. Go ahead.
I've got two boys, so I don't really have to dodge the fact that, I've got to deal with, them playing netball, which I love netball, but I'd rather them play footy.
Right.
If I had a girl, I'd have been pushing her to play footy. So, because that's what I know. Yeah. But that's like something where they're like, dads haven't had that opportunity before to be able to, if they did have girls, be able to put them to footy. Because I mean, footy's great, it's fun, it's a good sport, and we do an entire podcast about it, which is obviously why we love it. But no, it's that thing where like these lower levels, I don't think the lower levels pack up. I think because those are funded by councils, those are funded by independent sports clubs. So if the AFLW as a competition doesn't go ahead, I think your lower levels are still safe. And look, this could actually be an awful blessing in disguise for the AFLW, because if those grassroots go ahead without the main competition struggling still, you're going to have a couple of years possibly of these kids coming through who've played the game, who can suddenly make an immediate impact when they get to the top level. You're going to have a better quality of AFLW when it returns. That's just, that's silver lining stuff that, hopefully it doesn't go that way and the AFLW stays. But if you're looking for anything, to kind of hang your hat on saying, well, this could be a positive, that could be it.
Yeah. I mean, if you want to look at it positively, then fantastic. I mean, that's I'm not as positive as you are, and
well, look, I'm even positive to the point where I think the AFL season is going to go ahead, because I'm not ready to process it not going ahead.
Right. Okay. So let's say it does go ahead. When does it go ahead? I mean, the government's talking about a minimum 6 months shutdown, right? So that brings us to what is that? October, I guess.
Yeah. No, I think if it goes ahead, the AFL is going to get exemptions. I think that's the only way it happens, and I think it can happen.
Well, they'll have to, won't they? They'll have to get some exemptions, and things are going to have to be
and no one wants to hear that sports players are essential workers. But
they are though, aren't they?
Oh man, like if it's a case of, half the population is going to be a damn sight happier after this many months in isolation because there's footy to watch.
So what you're saying is it's mental health.
It's a public service, mate.
Right, the season has to go ahead because it's mental health.
No, so I think I was reading something the other day saying they're looking at July.
Okay. All right.
So May 31st is what their proposed date was at the start, but it's going to be more like the players come back at that round, start training for a month, and then are ready to go in July.
Okay, so let's talk about what you've just said there. They start training for a month and then they're good to go by July. Are the players not continuing to keep their fitness? Are they not continuing to kick a footy around?
Well, there's a difference. What happens between now and May. Like they're training right now. They're doing all that stuff, but if players get injured while training in isolation, if anything happens, you're going to come into that round 2 with a very different team that you had round 1. Like just look, I'm looking at your Eagles logo on your chest right there. Brendan Archie was in the Eagles best 22 in round 1.
Was he?
Yeah. Look, I actually read something about it. He worked his way in. He was told during the preseason that if he wanted a game, they dropped him last year, dropped him from the list, redrafted him.
Rightly so.
Redrafted him as a rookie.
Yeah.
Because of the Rioli vacancy, and said, if you want a game, you've got to become a forward.
Yeah.
Kicked 2 goals in that first round.
I mean, he's got a really safe pair of hands. So if he's becoming a forward, that's probably not a bad thing for his game, to be honest.
This is the thing. So he's worked hard to become a forward. So yeah, he was in the Eagles best 22 in round 1. Is a player going to develop enough to push him out between now and round 2? You've got to take that into consideration, have the team train together, because you're not going to come out of isolation into 1 week and say, all right, guys, let's play.
Yeah.
You don't gel. That's a way to lose all your players in round 2 in a week.
Okay, so let me put this to you. I believe, and you may disagree here, I believe that there's some sneaky stuff going on with these footy clubs. I reckon that they're allowing their players to train together.
All right. So the company line is that 2 players are allowed to train at the same time.
Right.
So each
players
club
train at the same time with all the other 2 players that are training at the same time. Right?
Look, I honestly believe that if you head down to a club that has a closed training area
or an indoor facility,
say a Lath Lane or a Holden Centre for Collingwood or somewhere like that, that there's a high chance you're going to see a bunch of cars parked pretty closely to that area. Look, that's neither here nor there though, but I do think that clubs are going to be trying to train together as much as possible between now and then.
All right, so let's get back onto
what is it? $10,000 fine?
Oh, gee. I think it's 1,000 for an individual. I mean, if we're talking Victoria, New South Wales, I think it's 1,000 for an individual, maybe 5 for a business. I'm not too sure, but it's not that much money.
John, I can interrupt you there and give you the actual numbers. It is $1,999 for an individual and $10,000 per company.
Okay, well there you go. So
I like having a producer.
So do I. So normally we do this in the studio. We obviously can't do that now, but Russell is in the studio. It's sort of his home as well.
He's fact checking us.
He's fact checking. He's a real trooper. He's got his laptop in front of him, and I don't know about you, Anthony. I like it. I like it a lot. I like to be fact checked.
Well, look, man, I'm just gonna back on the topic here. Local clubs aren't allowed to train together either for the same reason, right?
Now, well, no one can really be together, right?
A park. Right, which it's just a little, like, it's not actually a park. It's like a little, I don't know, just grassy area, right? Just down the road's a school where usually people who train will train for footy. Across the road there was about 8 guys yesterday with a bin of footies training. They were staying 1.5 away from each other all the time. They were just kicking the footy to each other, but I think a club organised a little bit of training across the road from me yesterday and told the boys to get down and kick the footy amongst each other, because not many people have a bin full of footies just laying around. That's a club thing. Yeah. They had cones set up. They did some running. They were kicking to each other, but they weren't doing it at a footy oval. They did it at this little park where I don't think people are going to be checking on who's training there as much as driving past a place that has footy goals and saying, wait a minute, there's a footy team training there. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So if the local clubs are doing that, I don't think it's much of a long bow to draw to suggest that a professional club might be doing the same thing. Yeah.
Yeah. And I was talking to someone yesterday that, about this exact issue, that they have to be, right. They've taken a pay cut. Things are not moving forward. We're not having a season. But if you're a professional footy player, you don't want to be sitting at home in isolation, do you? You want to be kicking the footy with your buddies.
Look, I just want to have a little thought here. Who do you reckon are the players who the fitness coaches right now are absolutely sweating on? Thinking, oh God, this guy's working on his own right now. I'm terrified of the condition he's going to come back in, kind of thing. Like, just off the top of my head, I reckon the McGovern brothers.
Yeah, definitely the McGoverns. They can put some weight on. They need a preseason, don't they?
Ah, yeah. Well, fucking bloody Mitch McGovern needed a preseason halfway through the year last year.
Yeah, right.
Like he got pulled aside and did a full preseason during the year.
Yeah,
so
he needed that.
And I reckon he's gonna. What was his nickname? Brackets, because the 11 on his back looked like brackets instead of the number 11.
And the thing with Jeremy as well is if he wasn't so good at reading the play and didn't have such safe hands, I truly believe that he would be in the same boat as Mitch. So they're both great players. We know that Mitch hasn't shown as much as Jeremy. But Jeremy, I think, definitely gets away with being a bit fatter, a bit slower, a bit.
Well, he's fit fat, isn't he?
Yeah, but he does his role, whereas Mitch doesn't do his role when he's unfit. That's the difference.
I think that's the biggest difference between playing forward and playing back. I think if you put Mitch back, he could do that. It's just they don't need him back there at Carlton.
No, that's right. That's right. They've got a pretty strong defensive line, don't they?
And I think they'll appreciate you laughing there, mate.
Well, we did get accused of being biased because we laughed at certain things that we said.
How dare we laugh?
I'm happy to cop the call of bias if I'm laughing for things that, you know what, it's true. I mean, if I'm going to sit here and say, well, Carlton have got a pretty strong backline, no one in Australia that knows footy is going to not laugh with me, right?
I don't think their backline's that bad.
It's not terrible, right? It's not terrible.
Look, you've got Doherty coming back now. He looked bloody great round one.
Oh, he's excellent.
Simpson's old, but he's still back there. But Jacob Wiedering looked like an absolute monster the way he's reading that play back there. Like,
he's a boss down there. Now this year he's a boss, isn't he?
Yeah, like he was just making Tom Lynch look bad. Like, and you were watching Tom Lynch pretty closely.
Oh, he's in my fantasy team, and I thought this might have been the year that Tom Lynch gave a little bit, but Wiedering,
and it might be like Wiedering might have just pantsed him.
Yeah, well, he did. I think he did. But in saying that, you watch the game, you watch Lynch. He looks like a Gumby. And I'm not going to swear. I want to swear right now. I really want to use some swear words. But watching this guy trying to lead or trying to go and get the footy, what is he doing? What is he doing down there? He just looks slow. He looks fat. He looks like a Gumby, and I hate him. What are your thoughts, Anthony?
I think hate's a really strong word. And if you were in your draft team, you wouldn't be throwing that word around.
Well, look, let's put it down to Wiedering just destroyed him, and he's actually going to dominate this year. Nah, he's not, is he? If we come back, if we get back into the season, he's not going to do it. He's not. He's rubbish. You saw him.
Look, no, I've actually got a fair bit of faith in what Wiedering's doing.
Yeah, but
he was what, a number 2 draft pick?
I think so. I think he was number 2. Yeah,
he's got the talent there, and
it's hard to know because
players, they take a long time to develop.
It's really hard to know because Carlton has had so many top draft picks and just like destroyed them, turned them into just junk. It's so hard to know.
No worse than Melbourne though. Melbourne, just cooked some draft picks. Man, they had a lot and just absolutely melted them. But anyway, that's all all the fun stuff you talk about when footy's happening.
Yeah, exactly.
Part of me just wanted to just pretend that the footy season's still going and we can just have a conversation like it's actually going to happen.
Well, I'm really looking forward to round 2, whenever that may be. But in my mind, it's next week, right? It's always.
What are you thinking of these throwback rounds the AFL's doing?
So I like it. I like it a lot.
Just explain it to people who might not be across it.
Yeah. Okay. So what the AFL is doing instead of having obviously live games and the season as we know it, they are throwing back to games that were pretty excellent. So between two different teams that were supposed to play in a round, and I'm not sure if they've gone away from that, but that was the idea. I think that perhaps
they did it this week as well, and it seems that they pick the winner, like the winning game, based on whose home game it would have been. So
right.
I mean, that's the pattern I'm kind of picking up. So like Freo versus Hawthorn was on, and they picked the one where Freo
won.
Beat them. But there are a lot of close games in there.
I mean,
I think
the
West Coast and Geelong were just on,
it?
and it was the game where West Coast came back from 5 goals down at 3/4 time or something at Cardinia Park.
Yeah.
So you're seeing a lot of great games, but I don't know, man. It's kind of actually making me miss footy more.
Yeah, I'd rather not. I'd rather not see it, to be honest. I like these games, but if I wanted to watch throwback games, I would watch them at any time. I don't need to watch them where they're just basically saying, "Hey, we know you don't have footy, but watch this game."
Do you remember when you had footy? Yes, I do, and it hurts thinking about it.
It still hurts. We're still talking about it. We're still doing a podcast about it. It's very fresh. It's very fresh. So I like it. Okay, so I like it. I like what they're doing. I think it's fantastic that they're, at least showing some footy. What I would like to see is them put a game on where you don't know what year it is. You don't know who wins. I would like to see just games that, they've been played, but don't tell us what year. So we can sit down on the couch watching these or on our AFL app or whatever, watching these games going, again, let's say Fremantle Hawthorn. Is it the grand final? Is it the 2013 grand final? Not sure. Is it perhaps
I think when it's a grand final, it's pretty obvious, though.
Yeah, well, you're right. It is.
Yeah, I think you're a terrible example there, John. Just castrate yourself for that one.
But I would like to see just a random game put on where you don't know the result. So
during the preseason, Foxtel actually does that. They just whack on these random games at any time, and I've got it built into me to press 504 on the channel no matter where I'm at. And I'm like, oh, that's right. It's not the footy season right now. But there'll just be a random game on. And there's no, you're looking at the graphics on the screen and you're like, well, that looks like it might be the 90s. And then you're looking at the players and oh, no, that player was around in the 2000s. And you're playing this game with yourself for half the game where you're like, what year is this? Is this so it's a cool thing to do. But at the same time, probably nerdy. And I'm not sure too many people are into that.
Yeah, I'll be honest with you. I wouldn't watch them regardless. I'm saying this and saying, well, let's see this. Let's have this so that we can guess. I'm not going to sit down and watch them. I've got better things to do than watch throwback games. As much as I'm missing footy, whereas I know you've got better things to do, but you put them to a side to watch throwback games.
Look, man, I'm legit reliving the 2018 year this year.
Yeah,
every week I'm trying to watch as many games from that round, kind of thing. West Coast just smashed the Bulldogs this week. They got belted by Sydney last week. Buddy kicked 8. Don't know what's going to happen, man. They're all over the place this year.
Well, yeah, round 1. Gee, let's not talk about that. So actually, let's get back on to, we're digressing a lot, and we can do that because we don't need to keep to a schedule of, well, we need to talk about this game, or we need to preview this game, or review this game. We don't have to do that. We can digress. We can talk about these issues, but I do want to get back onto the future of the AFL, the future of the game, and we actually have a comment here from Rob Abrahams. He is talking about private ownership of clubs. Is this a feasible option to address the financial woes faced by the industry? Privatization. It's a dirty word for a lot of people. Is this going to save footy? Privatization. What are your thoughts?
I hate it.
You hate it? You don't like it? Okay, let's hear it. Why?
Because the clubs end up becoming more of a vanity piece for that owner than what they were.
I mean, let's look at Eddie Maguire.
He's not the owner, though. He's the president. He can be kicked out.
Right, but is that not already happening?
In saying that, how many people actually like Eddie Maguire?
No, but that's.
Can you imagine if we had 18 Eddie Maguires?
But that's beside the point, isn't it? You're talking about a vanity project. That's what it is to Eddie Maguire. You look at his, and we're going to get to his interview. I can't remember what's the guy's name that he did it with. That's right.
Oh, it was amazing.
We're going to get to that, but you're talking about vanity projects, and we've seen it in other sports. We've seen it in other codes. You look at the English Premier League, and it can be that very much so. Is it not?
Even the NFL. It is that.
Well,
You know the
NFL
owners before you know the players. Like I think the owner becomes bigger than the club sometimes.
Well, but look at Koshi. Koshi's probably bigger than the Port Adelaide Footy Club to most people. They know
Yeah,
who
in
Koshi
China.
is, right? Well, China and even Australia, people know who Koshi is, but if they don't follow footy, Port Adelaide means nothing to them. But the fact that he sits there at the top, it means a lot to a lot of people. So you talk about vanity projects,
Look,
and
the
I
other
agree with
side
you.
of it is that the owners generally start pushing their best interest instead of the club's best interest.
Agreed. I
Then
agree.
they have higher majority votes in things they have to say, not just with the club but of the game. So then they start influencing how the game is structured, how the game is not. I mean, the rules and everything like that. I mean, the behind the scenes, your soft salary caps, your actual player salary caps, how drafts are done, all that kind of stuff starts becoming. Well, I'm a co-owner in this business, not because that's what they become. The club becomes because they can pull the club if they want, so they can start holding the AFL to ransom to say, well, no, we want you to do things this way. You get enough owners deciding that, and the AFL doesn't have a say in it. Now, I know the AFL may not be perfect and may not make the right decision a lot of the time, but I'd rather the AFL fucking it up for the AFL's benefit
Oh,
than
sorry.
Collingwood fucking it up for Collingwood's benefit. I've just
Sorry
swore a
about
lot
the
then.
swear words.
Sorry, Russ.
to what?
That's
So when we
okay.
do, Russell wants to jump in here. Russell, what are your
I
thoughts on the
had
swearing?
look. This is new charted territory for everyone. We might as well just drop the F bomb. I have a question about privatization.
I'm really fucking sorry, guys.
Quick question.
Sorry, go ahead, Russ.
I'm
Go
going to
ahead.
jump in with the privatization of AFL. It seems to work really well in the US sports, such as baseball, NBL, NRL, even. I get Anthony's point, but why?
But the difference is, Russ, that those codes don't have the equalization that AFL has.
Yeah, they don't
AFL
have the
has
salary
systems
cap.
in place to equalize the clubs. Once you bring in private owners, you start taking away the equalization.
Yeah, it's look. I think it's a really good point, and what Russell's saying is, I think that's a really good statement there, or a really good question. But we're talking about footy now. We're not talking about the AFL, with business as usual. We're talking about the future of AFL. The reality is some clubs may fold. A lot of clubs may fold if we don't do something. And so I guess that's where the question came from Rob Abrahams, that is this needed to keep the code alive, or do you think the
what's
code will
happened
continue to
that we can see
succeed?
happen is we've had two banks throw in a heap of cash to the AFL's pool right now. So that's why Gill was able to come out and say with absolute certainty that we're going to come out of this with 18 teams that we went into. I think before you get into privatization, we're going to start going into the world of mergers, of moving clubs, of everything like that. And that's another thing that people get angry about, people get upset about, is the idea that your club might merge. That happens a lot more often with privately owned clubs.
Yeah,
They
you're
follow
right.
the money and they follow the fans. Like
Yep.
if you watch or pay attention to the NFL, like cities can buy clubs. Like how many teams has Los Angeles had? Not Los Angeles, Nevada, LA. LA?
LV,
No,
Las
no, no, no,
Vegas,
no. Yeah, Las Vegas.
Nevada.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like they've had a lot of different clubs come through there because they can throw money at whoever they want and that business owner will move a bloody team there.
Yeah. Okay. So I think what you're saying there, I guess to answer Rob's question, I don't think we need privatization. I think it might work for some clubs, it won't work for others. I don't think we need it. But what you're saying there is it's a really good point. I don't want to see, it's people that listen to this show. They know that we're Eagles fans. I don't want to see the Eagles move elsewhere to follow the fans or to follow the money. And I don't think any other club wants to see that either, right? Like, you look at Hawthorn going down to Tasmania. They do it to keep the club afloat, or perhaps to, give our
Well, from
inbred
that
cousins
report,
down
they're
in
one of the 4
Tasmania
teams
something.
that can get through a year without without needing to dip their hand in. I think focusing on the other team that goes down there, North Melbourne.
North Melbourne, yeah.
That's the first team you're going to be looking at, saying if the Tasmania's going to have a team move there. And look, the Tasmanians saying they don't want them. And that's not a jab at North Melbourne here. That's Tasmania saying we want our own team. We don't want.
And they deserve their own team.
Oh,
look, I think we can give a jab at North Melbourne. Nobody wants them, right? It's not just Tasmania.
That was a good win in round one.
It was a good win, but the thing is, no one wants Tasmania in Australia. And when you've got people in Tasmania saying, "Well, we don't want North Melbourne," on the mainland, no one wants North Melbourne, really. If they're saying it, definitely. Just get rid of them. Just fold them. Merge them with someone else. Maybe create a Tasmanian team. Put them down. Who cares, right? Who cares? North Melbourne. Who cares? Okay, if you're listening and you follow North Melbourne, which you won't be, because nobody follows North Melbourne, right?
I thought you were going to say because no one listens.
Well, nobody listens. No, we have listeners. We have listeners. Okay, one of your friends, Anthony. What's his name? Name and shame. He follows North Melbourne, doesn't he?
Yeah, Sevi, who hosts Pop Culture News and Reviews with me.
Yeah, Pop Culture News and Reviews. He's on DRM1. This is a big shout out. This is a big FU to Sevi. Get a better team, mate. Get a better team. Stop what you're doing. Stop.
Stop following Tasmania, mate.
Do you have no dignity? Do you hate yourself? Does your wife hate you? You know, like North Melbourne. Come on. Right.
Look,
or am I alone here? Am I just am I sitting here just bagging out North Melbourne?
As a club, I like what North Melbourne stands for. Yeah, that working class shin burner spirit. Everything like that. There's
no charcuterie boards at their home games, are there?
No, I mean, Ben Cannington running around with hair plugs really shocked me.
Yeah,
because I thought he was the epitome of North Melbourne. Like, I did not see that happening, but he's still the same tough North Melbourne player, because at half time when the chips were down in that game against St Kilda, he's the one that started playing the North Melbourne way and pulled that team out. Like, that was anyone who didn't get to watch that, like, we were live on air while that was happening. I think we were riding off North through that whole first half, and they turned it around. They came back, and it was exciting to watch. So,
yeah, it was a good finish. It was a very good finish.
I watched round one a couple of times the next week because that's all that was on.
You didn't. You didn't. Come on.
I did. I really did.
See, nerd.
But that was a good game. It was a really good game.
It was a very good game.
Yeah, but that's something about, like, I would hate to lose North Melbourne out of the competition, because they bring a style that is not, like, you never know what to expect when you come up against North Melbourne, because they're so capable of producing that game that can bring a higher team down to their level. It's that they are an equalizing team in that sense. So, and that's something that I don't know if it's psychological. I don't know what it is, but there's something bred into that club that makes other clubs just fall apart sometimes. And when that happens, it's not like, because it's not that they're a younger side. Sometimes when you give a younger side a sniff, they'll run away with it. It's not like that with North. I don't know what it is, and I don't want to lose that from the competition. St Kilda's the other one. St Kilda was given more money than Gold Coast last year to stay afloat. And that shocked me to find out. But they're not doing great financially. So if another club's going to fold or merge, it's looking like it might be St Kilda.
Yeah. Oh, okay. Let's talk about that then. Let's move off. Future of the AFL. I think the AFL is going to be fine. I think, they still get millions of dollars in government subsidy and funding anyway.
You're going to be rocking in pretty much with just the clubs that are in just debt.
Right.
And that's how it's going to look.
It's going to be fine. So the competition will be fine. Let's talk about the clubs that will fold or may potentially fold. I know the AFL doesn't want them to fold, and they will do everything they can to keep every club afloat. But if there were going to be some clubs that, rather than fold, if there were, let's say, 2 clubs who you would either move or merge, who would it be?
This is a good way to get people to hate us.
Yeah.
Because like I said, the last thing you want is your team named, but I think we already have. I think, and as much as people are like first in, first out, GWS may not have the supporter base there, but they're managing their club well with what they've got. So I mean, to the fact that they made a grand final already is just amazing. So for the list they have for how they're managing it and the culture they seem to be building at that club, to the point, and I mean that as in those players aren't leaving. I firmly believe that I don't think they have lost a player that they wanted to keep yet. Like when they want to keep a player, they keep him. I think maybe Trelaw might be one of the only players they've actually lost that they wanted to keep.
Yeah.
But they still got an amazing deal for him. So I'd hate to see the Giants go. And I know I've got a soft spot for them and I talk them up every week, but that's your weekly update on how much Anthony loves the Giants. And Gold Coast, yeah, they're being propped up a lot, but they're still a young side.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Whereas, I'm sorry, Saints fans, when you look at St Kilda, they've been around for how long and they've won one flag?
Which was, I think, 1966.
1960 something, yeah.
Yeah, 1966 was their one and only flag.
Now you've got generational St Kilda members who are bragging about being related to someone who watched that grand final.
Yeah.
You know, it's
who cares?
They're not, you know, like they haven't seen that success. They've seen losing grand finals, unfortunately.
Well, we're talking a 09-10, or was it just 10? Did they lose 09 as well?
No, it was back to back. I'm pretty sure.
Back to back, yeah. So they lost in 10.
Or no, was it that they drew and then lost the next week
to Collingwood? I think that was 09. That one.
So they have had a strong enough team to do that, but they don't have, like, they've had enough time in the comp to have more than they have, you know. So they're this kind of also ran team which is also hemorrhaging money. So if you look at who's been given enough time to do something and hasn't, it's kind of St Kilda you look at and say, well, where are your members? Where are you? So how have you not built it up in this long? Why don't you have enough to be able to stand on your own feet? Do you have to move your club to do that? So that's something I'd be looking at. And then probably North is your other one you're looking at. Look, I'm actually surprised that out of those 4 clubs we saw with the names on top of that list that can sustain it, that there's 3 Victorian clubs in there. Because you look at West Coast over here, and one of the reasons why they are such a powerhouse is because it's a 2-team town. You know, I don't understand why Adelaide isn't as firmly entrenched in the financials as West Coast is.
Yeah.
Because they're kind of in the same situation. I understand why Sydney isn't, because and even Brisbane to an extent, because they're rugby league markets where they have to be winning to draw a crowd. And they have to,
that's right.
You know, and even then they struggle. You know, so I understand why those clubs aren't financial powerhouses, but those Adelaide teams I don't understand, because South Australia is a footy state.
Yeah, and they really should be powerhouses, right? They should be. You know, but also Fremantle in Western Australia is not a powerhouse. Neither are the teams in Adelaide. The West Coast Eagles are, and that's because they've had a lot of success. Why do you think that Adelaide and Port Adelaide aren't powerhouses? You know,
well, even looking at success as an indicator, both those clubs have won flags in the AFL system. You know, so they've had flags before St Kilda.
So at Port Adelaide, I think, was it 2004,
and they were a dominant team that year.
Yeah,
like there was about 3 years where Port were absolutely terrifying, where you were just so worried to play against them, and it was about the same time that Brisbane was just smacking everyone. You know, with that Voss, Black, Headland.
Yeah, early 2000s. Yeah.
Like if Brisbane hadn't gone through with that three-peat that they did, Port was the next team who were probably going to jump up there and win a couple of flags in that time. They were just really unlucky to have peaked in a time where there was another club peaking at the same time, kind of thing. And I don't think they've kind of rebuilt and recovered as well as they'd liked from that. But as far as a financial powerhouse goes, like they've got this, 150 years of history. Isn't that what they're celebrating this year?
I think so.
It's on their logo.
Yeah.
Where is it?
I know.
1870.
1870.
1870 is what's on their logo.
Yeah.
So that was
150.
So, and that's what I mean. South Australia is a massively footy town.
Yep.
Where they're celebrating a SANFL team that's been in the competition for this long and then, jumped over to AFL. Like, they were a really successful SANFL team. Like, and that's why they were able to just walk into the AFL, because they were blitzing every other team and had to kind of get out of there. So that's one of the things I don't understand, why they're having to do all this China stuff and everything like that, because I don't know. Well, I don't know what their membership numbers are like or anything like that, but you'd think they should have the fan base there.
Mm-hmm.
And that's it. It all comes down to membership, doesn't it? Like, we've got that grab from Eddie Maguire to kind of listen to. I reckon it's a good segue into it, because
let's do that actually. Russell, do you have the grab? Can you
trying
do
to
that
sift
now?
through the growing financial wreckage, and the R word keeps bobbing up: refunds. Eddie Maguire joins us, head of Footy Classified, tonight. Eddie, come on now. As club president, what's your stance on members wanting their money back?
Tony, it's as simple as this, mate. If you don't have members, you don't have a club. A club that has no members is a memory. So we need our members to stick with us as much as we can. If our supporters or anyone gets into financial hardship, speak to us. We are there together, because the members are the club. It's not as if we're privately owned. It's not as if we spend the money profligately. This is all about sticking together through tough times. And I can tell you, and you know the history of the Collingwood Football Club, we were founded in the darkest times of depression in the 1890s and got through by building the stands at Victoria Park with sustenance workers and all that sort of stuff. So, Tony, I'm just telling you, it's as simple as this.
I know, but if someone comes to you now, if a member comes to you now and says, I've lost both my jobs, I need my money back, you would say...
Tony, you've got to listen to me, mate. We are in it together. We look after our members. They're parts of our family.
Would you give the money back?
Tony, if you came to me and said, Ed, I need a loan at the moment, do you reckon I'd help you? Of course we would. Okay, but what we don't want to do is have a run on clubs, because the membership is keeping us alive at the moment. We've got no visibility. I came in tonight, drove along, I saw a kid, 7 years of age, walking along today in his Essendon jumper. And I looked at him and I thought, he's probably generational Essendon supporter there. He's got so much to look forward to. If you believe that the clubs and AFL football's important, please stick with us at the moment. You're not listening to me, Tony. You're trying to get a headline, and this is what we don't get at the moment. No, mate.
I'm not trying to get a headline, Eddie. I'm trying to get an answer. If a member comes to you, if a member comes to you and says they want their money back, will you give the money back?
Tony, I just said to you, if you've got financial hardship, speak to your club. We're there to help you. We always do. We do this year in, year out with people who've got financial hardship. What I'm saying to you, though, Tony, is this is more than just a transaction. This is people who love their club, and it means more to them. Now, Tony, you want to hear what the answer is, or do you want to keep asking questions?
No. We're running out of time. But you can love your club without actually putting your hand in your pocket too, Eddie.
And, Tony, if we don't have enough people putting their hand in the pocket, there will be no club. It's as simple as that.
Okay, unfortunately.
So, okay, there's a lot to unpack there. Tony, do you want to hear the answer, or do you want to keep asking questions? Well, for a start, Eddie, you haven't answered it at all.
All right, I think we disagree here.
Okay, all right, okay. I think he's answered it basically saying, no, they're not getting refunds. That's the answer, right?
I think he answered it as well as you can by dodging a question.
Yeah, if he was a politician, sure.
He answered it by saying, it's case by case, talk to your club.
But, so here's where I differ from you. Like, and Eddie, it's a contract. It's a contract when you purchase a membership, and I don't know every club's membership contracts or anything like that, or how it works with other clubs. But if you purchase, let's say for the West Coast Eagles membership, when you purchase a membership there, you're entitled to 11 home games. That is part of your membership. Now, just because it's a membership to a footy club doesn't mean that the law of contract disappears from Australia, right? It's a contract. If you are paying for a membership with the proviso, one of the terms is that you will say 11 home games for your team and you will have a seat. If you're not giving that to your members, you are breaching your contract. So if they're not giving refunds, and this is talking, from a lawyer point of view, I'm, studying law, haven't said that before, but I am. If you do not give refunds, you open yourself up to lawsuits. You do.
Well,
Breach of
here's
contract.
where I would argue just a little bit. The season isn't over yet. We don't know
Sure.
how
But
many games people are going to get. We don't know what people are going to get from that money. So right now, the clubs are in absolute no man's land to say, we don't know what you're going to get. We don't know what we're going to get. We don't know what we can offer you. So I think that's where it's difficult to say, all right, well, we can't give you what you wanted. We're going to give you money back because, one, that's what's being used to keep the club afloat. Sorry, but that's business. That's hard.
Mhm.
But I think it is that thing of, he is saying, if you are having trouble, just go talk to your club, because he can't answer on behalf of every club. Every club will respond to this differently. And that's the difference there. You know, every membership level is different. Like you said, at West Coast, we get 11 home games. Not every club gets 11 home games. You know, some people have flexi memberships where they only buy 3 games or 5 games. There's a chance they're going to be able to get those 3 or 5 games at the end of the year. You know, then there's he mentioned generational members. You've got these members who, like, say at Hawthorn, I'm pretty sure it is. Even Collingwood, I think, do it. Every year when you're a member, you get a scarf. And on that scarf is embroidered every year you've been a member. And the next year's added on there. If you pull the pin, is your next scarf, if you want to join up again, going to be missing a year? That's really important to some people.
Right, but that's not what we're talking about. The question was, if a member asks for a refund, will you give it to them? And Eddie's answer was very clear, no. You know,
I think his answer was, come talk to us and we'll try to work something out.
Which means no. It does. It's a very political answer to a very simple question. Just simply say no. Simply say no. Or we may on a case-by-case basis. But he didn't say that.
His phone would be blowing up the next day.
It's already blowing up, I'm sure.
Money back, but then we haven't thought this through, and in 3 months we want it back. You know, I think there's a conversation that has to be had where you've got to know it's not just a case of you're getting your money back. It's, all right, well, if you want it back now, then say at West Coast, there's a bloody waiting list to be a member.
Yeah, it's something like 20 years. Yeah.
You know, I paid to be on a waiting list for 8 years. Now, if someone bails, I'm sorry, you're probably going to get replaced by someone on a waiting list who is happy to take your place because they've been waiting for 10 years now.
I agree, but that's beside the point.
Is that fair, though?
Is that if somebody makes the decision that they want a refund and they get replaced, that's their decision, right? I think Russell's going to jump in here with something.
I just wanted to ask you a question while we're on this topic of people leaving a club and jumping in, because I was literally just about to purchase my membership to that, like, a few days ago. The only and the reason being is because of the waiting list at the West Coast Eagles. We'll just name drop a club there. If people do jump out, then I've got better chance now of getting in to grab a seat, because people will have hardship. But I have a bigger question that Eddie and Tony didn't even talk about. Yes, the members are one thing, but what about the corporate sponsors supporting these clubs? They've forked out all this money, and there's a contract there too, so they're not going to be able to be, like, you're basically wasting money if you're a company sponsoring these clubs at the moment.
Yeah. I mean, it's not a simple answer.
Well, this is what I mean. I don't think it's a simple yes or no answer. I don't think it's a right question to be trying to gotcha with someone on. It was funny and I laughed. It was a great moment, but I would have hated to be in his position, because that's not a simple question. There's so many different tangents and so many different levels, and it does come down to, at the end of the day, talk to your club. And I'm going to say, if you do talk to your club, there's probably a good chance that you're going to get your money back.
Yeah.
But if you come out live somewhere and say that from the position of being from a club, then you're going to get held to that. You know?
Yeah. It's not simple, is it? Well, look, we're going to get into a few more topics. Before we do, we're going to take a short break. We are just going to take 5 minutes to freshen up, put our makeup back on. We're going to have a quick break here. And when we come back, we are going to talk about more of these topics. So stay tuned.
Oh, wow, he disappeared.
Who did?
John.
Oh, that's okay. Everyone's just disappearing at the moment, and I better put some music on because we got viewers, we got listeners, I should say, on the radio, and now they can hear me talk, and they can't hear you. Bear with me. Live radio and TV, all good. Oh, golly goodness. Okay, so Eddie Maguire's gone, so I can close that tab down. I can get some of my PC back. Okay, that's good. Australians are already readjusting to the effects of the coronavirus by shopping online. With over 86% of Australians shopping online already, now is the time to promote your online store. Don't let coronavirus stop your business from growing. Advertise your online retail store with a clickable banner on DRN1.
So what are you waiting for? Give us a call 0449 633 425.
Coronavirus is most likely to spread from person to person when we come into close contact with one another. We can all help stop the spread by keeping our distance. This means not shaking hands or exchanging physical greetings and, wherever possible, staying at least 1.5 metres away from others. It's also really important to practice good hygiene, especially after being in public places. Together, we can help stop the spread and stay healthy. Visit health.gov.au to learn more. Authorised by the Australian Government, Canberra.
Indie music, artists, labels. DRN1. This is what we do. And we're taking you back now to John and Anthony.
Yeah, okay, look, I get coronavirus, right? But don't tell me what to do. Am I right, Anthony? You're muted, mate. You're muted. You gotta unmute yourself.
What just happened there?
Just right. Just I get it. I get it. Okay, we all get it. Just bugger off. Let me live my life. Am I right or am I wrong? What's going on? What's happening?
I don't know, man. I feel like you just come in halfway through a conversation, you know, to catch me out. And really all I'm hearing is halfway through your conversation. So
and we're back with John and Anthony, and don't tell me what to bloody do. Am I right?
It's you ragging about the government again, isn't it? Is that just standard? Bloody government, they're making me get vaccinated, mate. Can't believe it.
Look, I'm all for that. But anyone that listens and anyone that knows me will know that I'm probably going to get arrested by the government at some stage for things that I say. If it happens, look, I'm a Julian Assange of my time. I'm innocent. The things that I say,
just keep broadcasting from your little shack there.
Yeah, you and I will continue to do this show. I've got this beautiful Rode microphone here, and as long as I have a laptop and an internet connection that isn't my phone's hotspot, because the NBN
is not guaranteed in Australia.
Just another reason why the government sucks, right? We can't even get anyway. Look, again, we digress. It's not the show about that. You are listening or watching, tuning into Behind the Goals on DRN1. We hate the government here, and if I get arrested, then I'm afraid
of we, man. Jesus.
All right, well, I hate the government. Anyway, it's just a bunch of squares, just a bunch of nerds telling us what to do. Anyway, back to the footy. Let's get back onto the footy. Now, we've talked about the future of the AFL. We've talked about the future of the clubs. I think most of them are going to be fine. The AFL is going to be fine. Let's talk about the player payments. Anthony, the players have taken a pay cut, and it's dividing people. Where do you stand on this? Should they take a pay cut?
It's 50% for now. Isn't that what they're saying? So it's until the proposed May 31st date, and then they're going to readdress it. So it can end up being more. 50% is still a lot. That's
you look at players like Dustin Martin, Nat Five, Buddy Franklin. You know, they're all on over $1 million.
Look, I think we fall into a bit of a generalization category. Now,
for the elite players, sure.
They're in the top 1% of paid players.
Yeah, that's right. There's nine over $1 million, 9 players in the competition.
Yeah. Your average rookie is
$80,000 or so.
Yeah. Look, I had a look at a contract years ago, obviously. But
it's when you were getting your big shot at the AFL. That was tragically cut short by injury.
No, it wasn't. I was too fat. No, too skinny. Too skinny at the time. Then it was 74,000 for a year, plus match payments. So every game you played, you could earn an extra. There's rookies on the list right now who have now been dropped down. Yeah, it's a lot easier for someone like Patrick Dangerfield to sign off on that because he's not taking that cut.
He's still going to be on $500,000 a year.
He's going down to 450, 500,000. You know, so that's kind of, I think, how we have to look at it. It's also one of those things where you kind of, people live within their means, but usually to their means. You know, if you're on I'm going to say, you know, if you're an average player and you're on 250,000 a year, generally you're living on $250,000 a year. You've got, you know, your partner won't be working because she doesn't have to. So you've got your two incomes put into one there. Then you're living in a more expensive house. You're doing all these things, you know. So to take that cut, you're still having to pay for those things that you've made your kind of promises to. And I know everyone's saying everyone's doing it tough, blah, blah, blah. But these people are still making this choice to do that, to keep the competition afloat. Now, it's not as much to say that they're doing it for altruistic reasons. They're doing it because they want to keep getting paid in the future.
Right.
And that's what it comes down to. So I think that it's I hate seeing on Facebook, oh, you know, they can afford to take a pay cut. It's not like they're politicians, you know, like more than happy
to take a pay cut.
More than happy to see ScoMo take a pay cut. I was watching a press conference from the other day, and they asked him if politicians are going to take a pay cut, but also asked another question within the same question. Answered the first part of that question, never got to the pay cut part of that question, just kind of moved on to the next person, you know?
Of course.
So I think, yeah, for AFL players to do that, I'm happy for them to do that from a personal sense, to say that I want to see the game continue. And if this is what it needs to happen to continue the game, but from their sense, they'd be doing it for the same reason. That's their income that they're trying to protect. So in a sense, it's kind of, and you can guarantee that there's going to be back ending on that still. You know, when everything comes good, those players are probably going to put their hands out and say, hey, remember when I took a pay cut? You know, for the next contract negotiation? If you want to keep me here, you might want to.
Right. So, okay. So we had a discussion about this, might have been a week ago, maybe two, where we suggested that some of the richer clubs might actually be better off offering to pay other players' wages during this time, in the hope that when it comes back or next year, they move to their club, right?
Look, the tinfoil theory we throw around being Eagles supporters is that if you're sitting here looking at a forward line without Willie Rioli, right? But you have Jared Cameron on your books on a rookie wage, mind you. But Jared Cameron, the brother of Charlie Cameron over at Brisbane, who's now possibly struggling to get paid.
Probably the best small forward in the competition.
You could probably throw a bit more cash towards Jared Cameron, right? Saying, hey, mate, pass this on to your brother. Now, that's all tinfoil, but there's a lot of stuff that happens in footy clubs that if you actually heard, you would think, no, this is conspiracy theory. But it ends up 100% truth. Like, not as much as the 90s where they used to give cars as part of payments, or, you know, Chris Judd having a Visi sponsorship from, you know, getting paid there. But, you know, there are players' partners who are employed for well above the amount they should be getting earning.
Right. So this happens, and it's funny, the juxtaposition between this and the A-League. So Perth Glory got done, I think it was 2012, salary cap breaches. They were paying players' wives to work at the club. And so it's exactly what you're saying. It happens all of the time.
Well, a lot of AFL clubs actually, the players put into their contracts that they want the club to pay for their kids to go to private school.
Right.
So
but that falls outside the salary cap.
Yeah.
Which is, I mean, and that's why I say it's an interesting juxtaposition, because in the A-League you can't do that. You're not allowed to put those
in the
extra
AFL,
things.
You're not supposed to do that.
No, that's right. But nobody questions it. Nobody cares. Everyone knows it's happening.
It's because it's too hard to govern. And I mean, just taking it back, look how the AFL's managed the MRO, MRP kind of thing. They're not the best at being able to manage things, and that's a very straightforward kind of thing to get your head around. That they've just overcomplicated and overcreated. Now you're asking them to look into every player, their family, and then try and audit them to find out how they afforded to send their kids to private school or whatever the go is.
I mean, the bloody government wants to do it anyway, so why not? Why not?
But that's something the AFL doesn't have access to, and doesn't get the kind of, ability to do that. So I think that's where there is that grey area that the AFL clubs do kind of operate in, that there is scope to then have these tinfoil rumors to say, hey, throw Charlie Cameron's brother a couple of extra grand because you can afford to. And it's not a case of saying that, and then when the season comes back, Charlie Cameron will walk over to West Coast. It's that next time his contract negotiations are up,
it will be a consideration.
Yeah. Who looked after me when I struggled is where it kind of comes down to. And that, as much as people say that loyalty doesn't exist in footy anymore, it's very much like, I know we talk about them a lot, but Luke Shuey stuck around WA and has stayed with West Coast because of how much they supported him during his first few years of his sister dying of glandular fever, of struggling out in the park, everything like that. And he feels that turning around to that instead of going home is more of a factor of, you do have these players who feel they owe the club and then stay there. So, you can get it the other way as well. It's, I owe that club because they supported me. You get players who come through the draft who refuse then when they get better to go back to a club who told them they'd never make it as an AFL player during their draft meeting.
Yeah.
And a lot of coaches burn bridges that way.
Which is funny though, when you look at Tim Kelly, he couldn't really do that, could he? Because everyone except Geelong basically said, well, you're not going to. I think it was 5 clubs, but yeah.
Yeah, well, that was what it came down to in the end. Coming back west, it was that he sat down with Fremantle recruiters, told them to stop knocking on their door. It's huge, but it happens. Players are humans; they have memories, and they can be swayed and affected. By everything like that. So tin foil hat. I think there's a lot to play out and a lot of different scenarios that could play out here. Where you do see clubs who are in the position to do the sneaky stuff, doing the sneaky stuff. Even not so much sneaky, but you're looking at soft caps, you're looking at football development. If looking at the future of the game, there's going to be clubs now that are going to come out of this in serious debt to owing the AFL. Whereas you're going to have other clubs who were able to get through this without being in debt, saying, well, we can spend that on the footy department now.
Mm-hmm.
And those poorer clubs, it's happened this whole time, that those poorer clubs then can't match those payments. They don't have they start making cuts to how much data they get from Champion Data. Like Champion Data, for example, they don't give all clubs the same package. You have to pay for how much data you get from Champion Data.
Mm-hmm.
So some people have an entry thing. Some people have a full package saying we want to know every time something happens, kind of thing. Other clubs will be like, we don't value it as much. The clubs that didn't value it,
nor should they value it that much. It's junk.
But what's happened is the clubs that did put an emphasis on it, there was a correlation to them doing better.
Yeah.
Then the lower clubs kind of saw that. Champion Data went to these lower clubs and said, hey, these clubs doing really well, bought the full package. And every other club has had to buy in to be able to get that data now. Will they still be able to afford that moving forward, or will that be one of the first things they cut? So that's a direct correlation to on-field performance a lot of the time. That's where I think you're going to see some fallout moving forward, is where clubs are going to be able to allocate their spending. Because even I think the AFL said that they've got 500 million available to be able to bail clubs out, but it's going to be interest free until October.
Mm-hmm.
So once October rolls around, there's going to be a 3.3% interest on any money borrowed,
which is not a lot.
It's not, but how much do they borrow?
Yeah.
You know what I mean? What's a monthly 3.3 interest on, yeah, exactly right.
And are these clubs going to be able to, firstly, pay it off, and secondly, continue to survive with this hanging over their head?
Well, you look at these clubs like St Kilda who borrow money every year, and it's because they're struggling to get out of that shadow of the original debt they borrowed. And their goals when they go to the members aren't always, we want to win a premiership. It's, we want to be debt free.
Yeah.
That's something I think a lot of clubs are going to have to deal with moving forward. You see these clubs selling home games because they're trying to boost revenue. Probably going to see a lot more of that moving forward as well. Games played in Darwin, games played in Tasmania. You know, they're going to be bloody brave to go back to Shanghai, but there's going to be a lot.
It's not Wuhan, so it's fine, right?
Yeah, that's what the stats say, isn't it?
Yeah.
But yeah, no, there's going to be a lot of that moving forward where the game's going to change. I think there's no escaping that there's going to be a change there. It's just what shape the game comes back as that
Who knows?
we don't have an understanding of.
Yeah, and I think it all comes down to whether or not we see some games this year. I mean, that's the big thing, isn't it? That's the big question. It's what everyone wants to know. It's what everyone wants to see. Obviously, the clubs need games. They want to put these games on. The players do as well. You're more optimistic than I am. As we said, I don't think we're coming back. I don't think we're seeing games in 2020. But let's talk about realistically. Okay, we've talked about player payments. We've talked about future of AFL and a number of other things. If it comes back, this is something I don't think that we've really discussed. If it comes back, what does it look like? What does the season look like when it comes back?
All right, so that one, I know I said before I wanted to split your answers into two kind of categories.
Yeah.
But I think what's interesting to think of here is that, firstly, if it comes back this year, and then when it's back next year.
Sure. So let's talk about this year. If and when it comes back, what does it look like?
So obviously we know it's still going to be 17-minute quarters because they're going to try and jam as many games in as possible.
Yeah.
Looking at how they could possibly, I looked at some fixturing modeling that's getting bandied around. It looks like you're going to have games, your team it's not going to be as much as set in rounds as like this week's going to be round 2, round 3, round 4. You're going to have your team possibly playing 3 games within a week.
Yeah.
You're going to have midday games. We're going to go from no footy to footy every day, which I know sounds like the dream.
Well,
now
it is the dream. We know that.
It is. But the upside downside of that is that they're also looking at reducing the player list for each club, which then flows on to saying, can these players back up 3 games in a week? Like you've got players pulling up sore from 5-day breaks at the moment. If you don't have a list deep enough to be able to pull out players who are feeling sore and putting kids who can run out games, then you're going to have injuries and you're going to have clubs struggling to field numbers. So I think it's got to be one or the other. You can't strip the player list and condense the season. It's got to be one or the other. How are you going to make your money? How are you going to save your money?
Yeah.
I think you've got to keep the list full just for this season. I think next year you're probably going to have a reduced list regardless because clubs need to save that money. So how do you save money? You fire employees. What employees do you fire? How many footy players on your list are earning over this much? I think we're going to lose a lot of depth players from the competition.
Mm-hmm.
Then you walk into the draft. And that was already a seriously compromised draft due to father-sons, due to academy players. Jamara Ugelhagen was going at pick 1 to the Bulldogs because they could get that regardless kind of thing. There's not going to be any scouting done this year because there's no TAC Cup. There's no junior
there's no
footy
VFL, there's no Waffle, there's no SANFL.
Exactly right. So these scouts now, and don't get me wrong, these scouts do 3 years work before they get to this point. So they've already scouted these players 2 years. But how many players have you seen 2 years out who you're thinking, wow, this guy's going to take the competition by storm when he gets in here. And then his 18th year does nothing and drops down the draft board until a club sneakily picks him up at pick 40 something and he dominates because he comes back. can go the other way too. You know, these players shoot up the draft rankings based on one really good 18th year because they've matured a bit more, learned their role a bit more. It's all growing bodies, blah, blah, blah.
Paddy Dow.
Yeah, you know?
Terrible.
So I don't know if it's even worth just saying they don't do a draft this year.
But if that, so I don't know that that's going to happen. I don't think that they will not have a draft. I think they will.
So there's something about the AFL which you notice, which they've got these little agendas they've all had on the back burner, which they float into place whenever they get the opportunity to without as much pushback. Now, we know that 17-minute quarters have been on the agenda for about 5 years.
Right.
And we had a little bit of a situation happen, and suddenly they're in because of this reason. Oh, but look, scoring's gone up. The pace of the game's faster. Oh, it's all because of the 17-minute quarters. Next year, I'm going to be surprised if it's not 17-minute quarters.
Yeah, it's nothing to do with the fact that the players probably know that they've got one game in them for months, and so they're going to go
or that
hard.
Coaches haven't had time to adjust.
Yeah,
to how the game's played.
And it's like the bloody government. It's like the bloody government. They're just pushing through legislation because of this pandemic.
So
it's the same with the AFL, isn't it?
One of the things that the AFL has been pushing in the background for a long, long time is that they think 18 is too young for players to be drafted.
Yeah, which is rubbish. We know that. It's not. It's not too young, is it? What do you think?
I think it depends on a player's maturity level and body type. You saw Sam Walsh walk in at pick 1 and dominate.
Yeah.
But Sam Walsh was a different kind of player to the players who were picked at pick 12, pick 14, those players do generally come to the system and need about 3 years before they start peaking. So this could be their way of saying, actually, we're going to lift the draft age to 19.
Mm-hmm.
And everyone who was in the draft pool this year will be eligible next year. And
okay, so let's
everyone now waits a year.
I'm not saying that won't happen. It might. My concern is if it does happen, players that would otherwise join the AFL decide to do something else. Because when you're 18, you finish school, you either go to uni or you get a trade or you go to work.
Look, I didn't get drafted and join the army. So
right, and this is the thing, is that when you're 18, when you graduate high school, if you're not getting drafted to the AFL, you're going to go and get a career. You're going to go and do something else. You're not just going to, a lot of them will hang around and wait for the draft at 19.
Yeah, if you're at that elite level where they say you're probably going to go in the first round, you're definitely hanging around.
Sure, but then everyone else will
now,
go, maybe
we're
not.
Going on anecdotes here, but I was looking at somewhere around pick 50.
Yeah.
I didn't want to go through another year of playing 3 games of footy a weekend, training every night, and not earning any cash.
Exactly. Exactly.
And when you're in school, that's okay. But when you then go to uni, you have to work another job. You've got to do all that stuff. Like I was working 3 jobs. It was just a nightmare. And your mental state is at the point where you're like, I can't do this for another year.
Exactly my concern. And if you raise the draft age to 19, you are going to lose a lot of decent players because of that.
But then how many of those players then walk into a waffle side or a Sandful side or a VFL side, have another season? Because right now, a lot of the underage players are playing for Waffle or Sandful, but they're not playing VFL because they've got the underage competition there. They've got the TSC Cup. I think they've changed that this year. And the NEAFL isn't on the same level as the Waffle or the Sandful.
No.
So you always get these players who come out of these competitions of the Waffle and the Sandful who have played against men and know how to do that. And they generally do make a better impact at the AFL level faster because like your Aaron Nortons, Sam Taylor, who went to GWS, they've slotted into backline and forward lines. Whereas key position players generally take, once again, Sam Wiedering has taken 3 years to get to that position because he didn't play against men. He was just playing against boys.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So there is a chance that if they do stick at it and go into the Waffle for a year or the Sandful or the VFL, particularly the VFL, they're going to get a year playing against men they didn't have before and could have an immediate impact when they hit the AFL the next year as opposed to being babied through a year of AFL, have another preseason, get your time. You know what I mean? So there's two ways to look at it there. I understand what you're saying by how many of them are going to walk away.
Yeah.
And I'm not a great example of that because I did. But at the time when I did, the expansion clubs weren't there. And everyone was getting told that if you didn't get drafted at 18, you weren't going to get drafted.
Yeah.
But now we see that's not the case because the expansion clubs had all the early picks. Clubs had to go start getting mature age players. They wanted players that could make an immediate impact. Your Barlow got picked up. James Podsiadly got picked up.
Yeah.
These guys who were in the system, and now it happens every year. Mark Hutchings, Archie was playing sample, but these players do get picked out of the waffle now and the sample and etc. as mature age players because clubs need players who can make an immediate impact. You've got the mid-season draft as well, which is focused for that. Your Marley and Pickett's, guys like that, Tim Kelly even.
Yeah.
So now I think there is more of an incentive to say, go play waffle. You are a good chance to get picked up next year. As opposed to you didn't get picked up when you're 18, you're not going to get picked up because now if they do change it, no one's getting picked up when they're 18. So it is just a case of, look, if you can hang on for another year, you'll get drafted. Whereas, back then we were looking at, look, if you hang on another year, you might get invited to do another training camp. So I think times have changed a little bit. If they do change it, I mean, what was it before? 16, I think. So they have lifted the age before. I think David Wirapunda got drafted at 16. That was the norm back then, and they lifted it then. And people at the same time were saying, "Oh, this is going to end everything."
Yeah,
but it's happened before, and I think if they slide it back 1 year, because my worry this year is that we're going to compromise system. And then you're going to look at how the draft picks get doled out this year. Like, do we go the NFL way and have a draft lottery?
Well, we kind of have to, don't we? Well, I mean, assuming
if the season doesn't go ahead,
we have to.
You'd think so. Otherwise, teams that play crap the first round are going to get amazing picks because Geelong's going to get a great pick because they got spanked by GWS.
Yeah.
I mean, Gold Coast probably going to get the pick they were going to get anyway. Look, that's neither here nor there. But yeah, it's got to be a draft lottery if it doesn't go ahead. Otherwise, the draft doesn't go ahead.
Yeah. Look, I think it's an interesting time. It's unprecedented. We've never seen it, and I'm absolutely sick of the word unprecedented. We've been hearing it constantly, but we just don't know. We don't know what's going to happen. So let's fast forward to 2021, season 2021. If the season this year goes ahead, I'm not sure that there's really too many changes. I'm not sure there's much difference. It'll be a full season. Yes, we might have these 17-minute quarters. We might have a difference in draft or something. If the season doesn't go ahead, how different does 2021 look?
Well, straight away, if even regardless, season goes ahead, season doesn't go ahead, you've had a year where season doesn't go ahead. You've got a year where players haven't played for a year. A year out of the system, you need time to get back into the game. I think we're going to see a sloppy round one if it does rock around. Because there's also been no waffle, no sample, no lower levels. No one's played footy for a year. So even the players who usually be developing, they haven't had that year to develop now. So you're going to have rookies possibly who should have been peaking next year needing another year because they haven't had that exposure to the game. They haven't racked up the 20-odd games they would have had under their belt for there. That could put more expectations on them because people are going to be like, well, you're a third-year player now. Why aren't you completely dominating?
Yeah.
I think fixturing is going to be interesting because even coming out of this, I think we're going to have issues with flights, with all that stuff. Is there a case where, some of the richer clubs are going to say, well, a private jet is definitely the way to go?
Well, yeah. I mean, I'm surprised they don't do it anyway, some of the richer clubs.
Just it's a massive expense though, isn't it? To charter a flight.
Yeah, it is. It is.
Like
But
we've
some of
talked
them
about
can
it
do
from a WA point of view before, where it would make sense if, because the WA teams fly each week, for them to actually have a plane together.
Yeah.
Which would be owned by the WA Footy Commission, because the WA Footy Commission, I believe, owns the license to both clubs anyway.
It does, yep.
You know, if they could do it that way. But, I mean, looking at it now, it doesn't look like Freo would be able to afford their kind of cut in that the way this is going. And if they could, they'd be better off putting that money towards keeping their AFLW team.
Yeah.
Than trying to get a private jet.
Which,
you know what I mean?
to be honest, the AFLW, as much as we talked about, as much as we like it, it may disappear, right?
That, I think, is your big change for next year. It's how many AFLW teams could be in the competition, whether the competition stays afloat, and your other lower level. So West Coast has a waffle team right now. Freo is aligned with Peel.
Mm-hmm.
Carlton cut ties with the Northern Bullets.
Well, they did. They did very recently. Last week, I think that was.
That was what'd they say? 150 years, or something like that, of them being combined.
Yep.
That's like, we're going to see a lot more of that as this goes on.
Yeah.
So I think, as much as the top level might just be business as usual next year because they can afford to be, I think your lower levels are what's going to suffer. So your grassroots, your everything like that are going to come through, and you've got a year of no fundraising, no bar tabs, no, like, a lot of the stuff that these country clubs, these community clubs need to survive each year.
They're not having it.
Because they paid their entry fees at the start of the year.
Yeah.
You know, so they've paid their money, but they haven't had a chance to recoup it. So if we do go into season 2021 with footy, I think it's the lower levels they're going to suffer. And then we'll see that flow and effect to hit the top level later on, where, you know, what does the talent look like coming through who went through this?
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, there's a lot of unknowns. There's a lot of unanswered questions, and you and I could sit here and talk about it all day. But
and look, we'll actually try to do it each week, because
we will. We're going to.
Is some footy content better than no footy content?
I think it is. We both think it is, and hence why we're continuing to do this. And Russell, our producer, also thinks that it is. So we are going to be doing this show every single week, regardless of what happens. We're going to be doing this show every Sunday morning from 10, as long as I can get the NBN working. We were a little bit late today because I had a hotspot, but we are going to be back next week. We're going to be talking about, you know, the news of the week, and I'm sure there's going to be a lot. And we're going to sit here in isolation with our own systems, and we're going to go live as well. We're going to go live. So if you're listening to this on the podcast, we're going live on Facebook. It's a live video. So if you want to tune in and look at Anthony take his hat off and put his hat back on, and then take it off again and then put it back on,
and see he also might hand movements, and
he also might take it off again. He might run his hand through his hair, which you don't want to miss that. If you're listening to this on the podcast, you know, behind the goals, you might be listening.
Look, I'll try to be better lit next time. I felt like a whistleblower speaking out of the shadows for the first half of this.
Yeah, and I've got.
It gave me the confidence to be more controversial, though.
I think halfway through, I think your girlfriend, fiance or whatever, is it fiance you proposed? Maybe I put my foot in it there. She turned the light on.
She did, yeah. Through. She's good with that.
Yeah, it was great. Yeah, she's got your back. She's got your back. But next week, so look, we're going to wrap the show up. We're going to wrap it up because we've talked about enough. We could go on and we can go on and on and on. We don't know what's going to happen. We're going to wait and see this next week. We're going to be back with you 10 a.m. next Sunday morning. And if you are listening on the podcast, we will have this up Sunday afternoon for your listening pleasure. But thank you very much for tuning in to Behind the Goals on DRN1. We are in isolation. It's a makeshift setup, but we're doing it, and we're doing it well.
I'm enjoying doing this from my pajamas, though.
Like, yeah, right.
Ooh, yeah,
yeah. I'm not wearing a shirt under this jacket. I just threw this on. I'm really
sexy.
Quite naked. No pants on either. So no, look.
But you do that when we're in the studio as well.
Yeah, exactly. We're grateful to have you tuning in, listening to us talk absolute rubbish. And you know what? Anthony's already screwed the pooch earlier, so talk shit. It's just us talking shit. So thanks so much
I gotta
for
put
tuning
money in
in.
the F-bomb jar, don't I?
Yeah, that's right. Behind the Goals,
Lucky it's here,
DRN1.
it stays with me.
While this coronavirus is happening, we're coming to you live on Facebook, and then when we're back, we're going to be doing it in the studio. So thanks again for listening. We will see you next Sunday morning from 10 a.m. As usual, if you have any questions, if you have any, anything to tell us,
anything you want us to talk about,
anything you want us to talk about, just chuck it on Facebook or Twitter. It's Behind the Goals on Facebook. And what's the Twitter handle? BTG
on DRN1.
DRN1. Right. So, folks, thanks for listening. Thanks for watching. Anthony, give us one last hand through the hair, would you?
Oh, mate, I was going to do that thing where you go to do something and then you stop and it's like, is he frozen?
Well, it's too late now. You can't do it. All right. We're getting out of here. Thanks for listening. Behind the Goals on DRN1. We'll see you next week. Bye-bye.